Have you considered that what you call anxiety could be an energetic upgrade? Maybe you already experienced this yourself. Whether or not you do, this episode is all about energetic upgrade and what that means, how we can support ourselves in embodied safety and navigating the expansion that might be happening in our systems, as well as spiritual crisis, emergence, and awakening. The Embody podcast accompanies you on your journey of remembering and embodying your true nature, integration and alignment with your vibrational clarity, self-love, and living a life of beauty and wholeness. It's a menu of transformative healing tools, experientials, meditations, and practices from a blend of family constellations, somatic therapies, and holistic and spiritual practices, sprinkled with vulnerable conversations with people who have the courage to be themselves, Alive Now episodes with updates on my personal process, and Reverie episodes that are spiritual succulents that honor, reveal, hug, shake, or stir you into love. I'm your host, Candace Wu, integrative and intuitive healing facilitator and artist. Before we jump into the episode, I want to thank Andrea Klunder from Creative Imposter for interviewing me on her podcast, Podcast Envy. It was such a fun episode, and Andrea is like the host of all hosts, so personable, so open and responsive in our conversation, and she truly made me feel comfortable. And I shared a lot about the back end of podcasting, the parts of podcasting that I don't necessarily talk about here, that you don't see, what happens in the background, what happens in my thinking, and the intentions of this podcast, the Embody Podcast. You can check that episode out at candacewu.com/podcastenvy. I also want to mention that I am starting a new thing. I just started a program where if you have the means to support someone else in their healing work and you desire that, if you feel like you have been in a place of privilege or have received a lot in your life and want to give back, that you can make a contribution to sponsor someone in having sliding scale healing sessions from me. Likewise, if you're somebody who needs a little bit of extra financial support, perhaps you have been affected by COVID-19, or you are affected by all of the race relations, the systemic racism and trauma that have been happening for years and years, that have touched your finances. If you feel like you are in a different position and you need some financial support and you want sliding scale sessions, you may benefit from this program. If you're interested in contributing or in receiving, you can find that at candacewu.com/healing support. Welcome back to the Embody Podcast, everyone. It's great to have you here. Today, I want to talk about two topics that are similar and related: spiritual crisis, spiritual awakening, and energetic upgrades. And these came from questions that I received from people around me, one from a friend, as well as from a listener in Germany named Tamara. So shout out to you both. So my friend calls me up and says, I'm feeling really frantic. I feel like I'm racy and restless, untethered. And I don't know what's going on. Do you have a sense of what's going on for me? So normally in my work with my clients, we would work with that feeling, and I would support that person in moving through the feeling, maybe in intuiting what's happening, depending on where that person is and how their nervous system is doing, maybe support some grounding so that the body feels safer. But my friend is not my client, and sometimes what my friend and I do for each other is just feel into it for a moment and touch into the energy and see what's there. And with my clients. Sometimes I do that as well if they want that. But I wanted to just distinguish that because this is not necessarily what I do with my clients. But if something seems relevant, I'll offer it. So when she told this to me and said that she felt like she had nothing to anchor to and that untethered feeling, my sense of what she was going through was actually that she was having an energetic upgrade. So actually what I said to her was that when I have had a feeling that I might describe as anxiety, there's this discomfort and unsettled feeling, a bit like my emotions and my energy are stretching and new energies are coming in. That's what I call an energetic upgrade, where energies that come with ways of being, that come with maybe ways of sensing and thinking and knowing that go beyond the mind, go beyond our rational thinking, and give us more access to different parts of our body, different parts of what our relations, connections, resources are that may be unseen, maybe something that we never thought was possible. That's an energetic upgrade, where we may be getting information that's new or that's restored from some place where we left it in some other life or dimension. And we're now receiving it back or learning it for the first time. But from the previous experience to the now, there's something different. And when I said this, my friend was like, yes, that is exactly what it feels like. And she had this sigh of relief, which seemed to show her body was confirming something too. And it released her from having to know exactly why she was anxious. And I think when we have anxiety or we call something anxiety, it could be that we were triggered by something activated us that we can name, or something unconscious that we can't name, and our body has a reaction. Well, that may or may not be an energetic upgrade. That may be your body having the reaction to show you there's something here to complete. There's an experience that makes us feel nervous or fearful or uncertain, and we're having a reaction. Once we work through that and complete that, we may find we return to grounding and a spaciousness or a neutrality, depending on how much trauma you have or how similar this is to other layers of trigger that you've experienced with this piece. But if you don't have a lot of that, or depending on your threshold, then maybe you find some semblance of neutrality again or peace. And maybe your capacity gets bigger too to move through feelings. So in a way, you could say that you're getting an upgrade, like your capacity is growing, your ability to navigate your emotions is strengthened, or you had another practice at it. And yet the feeling of having, for me, an energetic upgrade feels a little bit different. You might be wondering, what the heck am I talking about? And I think my 10 years ago self would say the same thing, like, I don't know what you're talking about. And there were a lot of things 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, that I'd be like, that makes no sense. Certain things that I believe now, certain things that I have access to now because of clearing trauma and completing it, integrating, feeling a greater sense of integration with my whole being, where my physical body is more integrated, as well as my alignment with who I truly am, my true self. And with that, what has come is more ability to access the unseen world and dimensions of existence that I never knew were possible And I still don't necessarily have proof of anything, but I have a knowing and I have a feeling sense. And I feel that is very connected with my reality. And that supports me. I feel more connected with things around me, with the world around me, with life itself, with joy. And with this cleansing of my nervous system, purifying of it through all this integration work, I have found that at times different energies were trying to open up in me or trying to reach me from the outside. I'm not sure if there's a difference. At times there's felt like a difference. But what I end up feeling is that something from me from the inside is opening up, and inside and out, we are of the same as the whole. And so I think I don't feel the need to rationalize that anymore, although I'm finding that I might kind of feel the need to explain this in a certain way, but I'm just going to leave that because I don't really, for myself, feel like I need to explain it. And so energetic upgrade, to me, it feels like my body's stretching, my energy is stretching, and I'm expanding, and I'm able to feel more. And sometimes that just feels unsettling. It feels like growing pain. And I hesitate to say pain because it's not necessarily pain, but it feels like growing discomfort. And so that's kind of what my friend was saying. Yeah, am I having like growing pains? And it seemed like it. It seems like when we energetically upgrade, it's not like it's a better place necessarily. It's just a more expanded place of who we already are. Maybe it's a larger embracing of who we already are rather than a blocking of it. More integration. It can make us more available to certain information and experiences through this physical body. So if you've ever felt a feeling of being frantic or restless, untethered, unanchored, racy, uncertain, a discomfort that you might call nervousness or anxiety, you might consider if this is something that's happening to you or if it begins to happen to you. And this leads me to spiritual emergence, spiritual crisis, and spiritual awakening, as I recently got some questions and conversation from Tamara in Germany. Thank you so much for reaching out to me, and appreciate you giving me permission to share some of what you experienced and your questions. So she had shared with me she was experiencing spiritual crisis and spiritual awakening and wondered if we had similar experiences. So about 2 years ago, I had recorded an episode on spiritual crisis. I think I called it #WTF is happening. And the gifts and freedom that you can receive from spiritual crisis or through it. And that's episode 13. If you want to find it, it's at candicewu.com/EP13. And the following episode to that, I think it's episode 15, is also like spiritual support, soul support, body support for spiritual crisis. And at that time, I was in Bali and I was experiencing a huge amount of energetic upgrade. And I don't know if I would have called it that at the time or if I did or not, but I felt like my body was going through so much dismantling. All of the parts of me were breaking down. My identity was breaking down to a large degree, which is kind of what I had been working towards and doing little bits of with my healing work. But here was like a giant piece of it. And it felt so destructive on the inside that it was hard to take. My body was feeling overwhelmed. I was scared. I was really scared and uncertain. And it took all of my focus, which I'm so glad I had some of these somatic experiencing tools to rely on and family constellation tools. But it took all of me to muster up focusing on, I have a bed to sleep in. My physical body is here. I can see a plant, and that's pleasant. And just breathing that in and noticing it and letting my body align with the here and now so that it could feel safer, because I didn't feel safe on the inside at all. And I did not feel like my body could handle what was going on inside all just on its own. I was able to handle it by using the tools I had, which I was so glad I had. And so you'll hear some of that account in that episode if you listen to it. And I think that looking back, I have experienced that kind of intensity of spiritual emergence or crisis before that one other time. And after that one other time while I was in Mexico. And each time I had different tools that I was able to handle it better for myself, or that I was able to navigate through it with a little more ease, less intensity, and with what was intense, I was able to have the capacity to feel through it. I did get support, so I didn't do this alone, and I just was with all these feelings, and I'm calling it spiritual crisis / spiritual awakening or emergence, because what can feel like crisis can actually be your energy system, your spiritual experience opening up so that you can expand more into yourself, more in alignment with the essence of who you are. And what wants to make its way through then is any piece of trauma that's in the way. Any fears that are in the way or that have been held in the body want to purge out. And sometimes that can be so intense that it overwhelms the nervous system. We do have this physical body to work with, and the nervous system has a level of capacity wherever you're at. And sometimes our experience just blows the roof off of it. And our body feels like it's breaking down in a really intense, scary way. So Tamara had mentioned shaking and twitching as part of what was happening for her. And here are some of the questions that she brought up, which I really enjoyed. She said, I also have shaking and twitching, and curious if pendulation is a good way to move through this, or is it interrupting the release? Or is thinking of a safe person while shaking a good thing? Can orienting or thinking of a safe person be practiced all day long, or is this too much for my system? So I'll just start there. My feeling is a good rule of thumb is to notice when your body feels like it is getting towards overwhelm or in overwhelm. I talked extensively about that in episode 92. It's at candicewu.com/EP92 about how you can notice overwhelm in your body, the signs of it, and how you can start to develop a threshold where you notice it and gauge that so that you can bring your body back into a sense of safety, or give it what it needs so that it can arrive there naturally, back to the here and now where it's safer. That's given that it is safer, because it may not be. So you can start to get your own gauge by noticing when it feels like it's getting to be too much, when feelings feel like they're a bit bigger than your body could handle, or when you feel like, okay, I felt through a couple of breaths or a couple of minutes, whatever your threshold is, and that's a lot, or that's getting to be a lot. Take a break. It's great to take a break, because your body, your nervous system says, oh, we are safe, even though we're going to those really scary feelings or uncomfortable feelings. And what that gives to your nervous system and body is a greater capacity, that's pendulation. To the simplest degree, it's pendulation, and it helps your body digest and integrate what needs to be integrated when you go back to the difficult feelings. And it may already be integrating while you're feeling into safety. The body needs to make space for the upgrade that you're receiving and expanding into, the energy of yourself that wants to open up. So when it pushes out the stuff that doesn't really resonate with your true vibration, then it's really helpful to bring your body into safety, give it more capacity to metabolize and move through all that. And when we're in overwhelm, the body is not digesting or not digesting as well. And whatever you do in that state may not actually stick. It may not actually thoroughly calibrate in your system. And I do recommend tuning into a safe person and imagining that. Resourcing, meaning connecting with things that make you feel safe or that bring you a sense of beauty, presence, that you're alive right now, that you're here. And all of that can support your body in developing more safety and digesting everything. There's also the episode on emotions and resourcing a safe person and pendulation at candicewu.com/emotions. And each of these episodes has experientials that you can use to support yourself in learning that tool so that you can digest what's happening in your life, whether or not you're having spiritual crisis, spiritual awakening, or any sort of energetic upgrade experience. If you're feeling triggered, if you're feeling nervous or uncentered, uncertain, all those can support you. So are you interrupting a release when you tune into resource safety or pendulate? And my feeling is that no, you're not. Well, yes, you are interrupting it, but you're doing it for the purpose of gaining more capacity, tuning into more safety, so that when you go back, your body can digest more of it. Or that when you're in safety, in the safe zone, that your body digests it very naturally and easily. So it's a helpful thing rather than avoidance. Avoidance is a whole other thing. And touching your body is a really great way to remind it of its container. That's something that helps me through any time I feel like, oh, something's happening and some energy's moving through me. It's a lot. And I also look towards daily comforts, like having a warm cup of tea or soup and things like that. And again, you can find more of that information in the Overwhelm episode. So as I'm reflecting and sensing into this, my feeling is that the world might be going through a collective energetic upgrade. In fact, a lot of maybe people in the world of spirituality or astrology or energy are saying that we are, as a collective, the energy of the collective is in general upgrading. We are finding more expansion and alignment in ourselves individually as well as together, in some sort of harmony together. And the discomfort that can come up is a part of that process. And we may see that in a lot of destruction and a lot of intense experiences that are happening right now. I mean, 2020 has been very intense for many people and also very opening for many people. And what we might see too are our or other people's typical ways of coping with certain emotions, triggers, and it might be an interesting time to experience, explore, play with different responses And one way to do so is to witness it and just be with what's here. Bring yourself some more sense of safety. And maybe even this other angle of seeing things as an energetic upgrade, that you're coming into expansion, that the discomfort you feel is on the pathway, and it means that you are being given by your body and by your system just the right thing that leads you to the opening that you desire at a deeper level. So we see that too when we create a goal, or we visualize what we desire, or we declare that we want something. Usually the things that have gotten in the way of that will emerge. And it's like they're saying, okay, if you want that, then we have to deal with this so you can bring this energy forward, the energy that's tied up in keeping this emotion down, or tied up in this past experience where something went the opposite way, or you created meaning that is relevant here. And so you free up that energy, the expansion in your body happens, and an opening happens towards what you desire. So thank you so much, Tamara, and thank you to my friend, both of you, for sharing your experiences, feeling through our fears and feeling through this energetic shift and movement, just distilling it to the sensation of the body, and if your body's capacity to feel through that feels supported or feels overwhelmed, just knowing that you have the tools to come back to a safe feeling in your body, a grounded feeling, and then continue the expansion that's happening, continue to navigate the discomfort. That is empowering, and it's something that is so basic, and yet we can really forget it or complicate it with naming it things, or trying to figure it out and analyze it, which is kind of a symptom of the anxiety itself, or the discomfort and activation itself. So I hope this is interesting for you. If you have other questions about this that were not touched into today, I'd be happy to receive them from you. You can always Instagram me or email me, and I'd love to hear from you. And as always, the links that I mentioned here will be listed in the show notes on the episode at candicewu.com/energetic upgrade. If you'd like to stay in touch with me through my newsletter, feel free to sign up at candicewu.com/embody. Such a pleasure to be here with you today, and thanks for sharing in this conversation. See you next time on the Embody podcast.